Justin.
It is 6 p.m. on Tuesday, April the 30th, which means we'll call to order our scheduled city council meeting here this evening. I'd ask that we would all rise. We have with us this evening Pastor Larry Gilbert from Methodist Church of Murphysboro. I mentioned it the last time, but again, he is retiring soon, and we thank him for his years of service to his church and also to the community. Thank you for that, and I believe you're going to lead us in prayer this evening.
I am, my last time. Yes. Let us pray. Almighty and gracious God, Lord, we just give you thanks for this day. Lord, as I sat here this evening, I thought of the millions of people, Lord, who live all over the world in fear and want because the governments under which they live do not protect them, do not provide for them, do not serve them. And God, we are so blessed to participate in and be a part of the greatest political experiment ever in the history of humanity. And what it does for us, Lord, at every level. And while there will always be room for improvement, God, I want to thank you for the people who are in this room who actively participate in that process at the local level of their community, and who offer and give on a regular basis to serve the needs of this community and the people who are a part of it. And we are all blessed by those efforts. So God, we thank you. We thank you for the privilege to be a part of this great nation, a part of our own community, a part of a process, Lord, that is intended to be fair and just, that is intended to provide and protect and serve. And God, we just ask that you would bless the gathering this evening as they go through the routine of just doing the work of this community, but in a larger way, God, as we all continue to live our lives, serving you and one another. God, again, we thank you for all the blessings you give us each and every day. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you again, Pastor. Clerk Hunziker, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Hughes. Here. Alderman Curry Whitson. Alderman Brown.
Here.
Alderman Ross. Alderman McCollum.
Here.
Alderman Irvis.
Here.
Alderman Brad.
Here.
Alderman Bastian.
Here.
Alderman Campos. Here. Alderman Pittman.
Here.
Mayor Stevens.
Present. All right, well, we'll get into our agenda items this evening. Up first, we have the consideration of council minutes from April the 16th included in your packet, and I'd entertain any questions or amendments to the minutes this time. Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have the consideration of accounts payable registers. One included in your packet. I think there was one handed out before, perhaps not, no, just one, okay. There was something handed out before, I think it was financial reports. So, yes, any questions on the bills this evening? Mr. Bratton?
Register 769, page 2. This tourism is Classic Garden Ornamental Ltd. for $24,723, or what is that?
That is a continued partnership with Murphysboro Main Street. They are continuing to effort toward their nonprofit status. Mr. Evans, can you update us any on that? I know that you were working with.
Yeah, it's a multi-step process. Of course, Main Street has been tax exempt in the eyes of the IRS for many years, but have never yet met the Illinois Department of Revenue standard for sales tax exemption, and that's what we're working to do. It takes a lot of data and information to do that, so we're gathering that. Hopefully we'll get that this year sometime.
So in the short run, to answer your question, we'll be reimbursed for that money.
They've already reimbursed.
They have already.
They brought us the
reimbursed
check
us.
first, yeah.
That's what I wanted to know on that one. This is probably, I ought to know this, but I don't. On page 5, for the bond fee for $150.
I don't know the answer.
That
to
is actually court money, issued a check to us, and it should have been to the Jackson County Circuit Clerk. This happens randomly. So there in turn, we have to receipt it and cut a check back to the county.
Okay, thank you. And that's all I have.
Any other questions?
I have one.
Ms. Campos?
Page 1, I'm in Illinois. We usually pay electric, but in the first one, we have gas on 1609 either. It's just random question.
Did they have gas and electric services at that address?
That is tourism fund,
Oh, okay,
hotel motel.
okay.
All right, if there's no other questions, I
Thank you.
entertain a motion to pay the bills.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'm going to move past item number 5. I had a resolution that I was gonna present this evening, but I'm going to be unable to do so. We'll move into our regular committee and commission reports. Up first, we have the Budget and Finance, which is chaired by Mr. W.J. Pitt. W.J.?
Thank you, Mayor. Under old business, we have the status of project reimbursements. I guess I'll throw that back to you.
Well, I guess what I can say is that I feel compelled to mention this, even though it's really not related in a sense. And I did send out an email, but it's public information. It's been reported in the Belleville News Democrat and other news sources. Joe Capias's home on April the 18th was struck by lightning and burned to the ground, and his mother-in-law passed away as a result of the fire. And so I haven't had any communication with him since the 18th of April, just out of respect for the family situation. I have not had any further communication from the insurance company, from Mr. Rawson, beyond the questions I got from them probably 10 days ago, 14 days ago, and to which I responded. So, totally understand the frustration with this situation to some extent, because I really don't have any update beyond that.
Alright. I'm gonna keep it on the agenda for next meeting then, and try to
Absolutely.
get an update in the meantime. Next item under old business is discussion regarding use of city water and electric. We do have Mr. Stearns here from the Apple Festival. I'm sure have you been brought up to date of what we talked about last time? And
Somewhat, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Gary, you were the one that had that on there, put on there, correct? You wanna fill him in on the high points? And
Well, they used, last year they wore stuff on our parking lot, which was a bad deal. We come in on Sunday and cleaned it. And, of course, they blamed everything on you,
Well, that's the
And-
first step. That's all we do.
I shut the water off so they couldn't wash off on the parking lot because we wore some mud out from under the truck. They didn't like it. But then we have them out here, and they just take a water hose and they wash all their vehicles, leave the water run, and we feel like our taxpayers are paying that dime because we can meter this water right here. We just gotta figure out who wants to pay for it.
Yeah, and basically, per my contract, we have a 3-year contract with them, because of lack of a better way to say it, it's always been this way as far as the water was always provided by the city. Electric has not been. I do have a question real quick to move back on the electric side. Did they plug anything into the annex? To the,
On electric,
yeah.
I think.
They have in the past,
I think
I
they
know.
have in the
Okay,
past.
okay.
Now, they're hooking their water hose up there to wash the vehicles on the annex building,
Annex, okay.
yeah,
Yeah, because we.
on the west side.
We've got about, maybe 3 water hookups that Tim sets up, for us on the city, which is, we're not paying for that at all. We have like 8 different electrical hookups that the festival pays for, as as you probably realize, last year we did quite an extensive upgrade on the electrical side in the concession area. But water usage overall, we do use water for all the concessions down in the parking lot, of course. And I am aware of, they're real particular when they do come into town, the concession trailers, they'll hand wash it with a bucket and then spray off their concession trailer every time. I know last year was a little different, still no excuse for the mud in the parking lot, because they were pulled out, I think they said probably 60% of their concession trailers and their rides up north was pulled out of the field that, I guess they got monsoon rain and they couldn't get out, and they had a tractor that pulled them out. But, the trucks and so forth, they should have went to the car wash. We've always allowed them to wash their concession trailer once they're in place, because he does, it really means a lot for him for his appearance of the actual concession trailers. And of course it does for us too, because they do have a neat, if you will, carnival. Now over here, to be totally truthful, this is over here is a little bit out of sight, out of mind for me, because I don't ever get over here. So that's the first I ever heard of what you're telling me over here. So you're saying leaving the water running and so forth. So I'll address all that. And if we need to meter it. For now, Festival would have to pay for that, but then I would have to build that into some type of future contract that I have with those guys. I mean, the Carnival guys are actually, they're really, of all the ones that I've explored options with and so forth, they are actually been very, very good as far as the workers and so forth, the cleanliness, and of course their home. They're all vetted through, well, actually several different agencies, and of course we bring our own vetting process to it equally as well. But I think when I talked with him after he called me last year, by the time I got down there, of course it was all over with by that time, because I've got about 4 or 5 fires that I think I was putting out at the time. So truthfully, his excuse was that he was just trying to get the mud off the vehicles because he wanted to make them look good. And I told him that that's different from washing the concession trailers right down the street with using a mop bucket. So I think that'd be an isolated event, but I wasn't aware of anything here. I do, like I said, I do know they wash the concession trailers in the concession and in our festival grounds, but they're washing their
Campers
here.
and their vehicles over here.
Okay, all right.
I
Have you seen that
suggest,
other than, have you seen that each year, or was it isolated last year? I'm
No,
wondering just because of the.
it's been over the past years.
Is it? Okay, all right, I wanna make sure.
Out here, I don't think we've had the trouble with them washing the mud out from under vehicles up on the city lot before. But I told the guy, I said, look, we just had the fire department spray this down Sunday to keep
Right.
it clean.
Yeah,
Well, he didn't wanna hear it, and I didn't wanna hear what he had to say either after that point.
yeah.
But out here, they just turn the water hose on, wash their truck down, and leave the water lay there and run, and then they'll wash their trucks out there, or whatever vehicles they put in the lot out here, they wash and scrub down.
But I'll address that, because that was total outside of mind for me, so, because I very rarely, the only time I got down here last year was a little bit of some sewer issues and making sure that they didn't have enough, I think they were sharing too many of the tanks that we provide. They had like 5 hoses going into one and 2 in another, and I dealt with that, but I didn't realize the water usage there, so. Like I said, if we've got to meter it, we've got to meter it. I would just address that in my future contract, so I would need to have a heads up on that very quickly.
When is that contract run out?
I think I got another year.
If we don't get something settled this year out here, we can meter it. And Tim said he could hook the meters up, and we could tell exactly how much water they are wasting out here.
Yeah, because I don't think, right now I know that, like I said, we use it as far as consumption wise, that they'll wash their concessionary, they'll wash their concession trailers. They use some in the concession area, which is our vendors ourselves,
Yeah.
not the carnival guys. We hook up 2 campers and the office trailer, where they 2 stay, and their camper plus all these campers. And that's pretty well the extent of, I think, our hookups, because I think we only have in the festival ground. I think that Tim's not here, I think we have three. I think either 3 or 4 spigots that we actually,
We're always trying to figure out where we're losing our water at.
you know,
And if we don't meter it out here, if there's 3 or 4,000 gallons, which I'm not saying they're using that much, but we think we might have a leak someplace too, so,
sure.
you know, it's, we just need to know how much water is being used.
Mr. Bratton?
I think it'd be a good idea just to meter it this coming year, so we know how much water's going through there. I realize, you got another 2 years on the contract?
It's either 2 or 1 or 3.
Okay. And I realize from being in business that if they have to pay for the water, or this electric or anything else, they're gonna bill that right in the price what they charge the Apple Festival. Somehow they're gonna get reimbursed for it, but I would like to see, to answer the question how much water we're actually using.
And it may be insignificant amount that we don't.
And I don't, nobody really wants to hurt the Apple Festival.
No, no, absolutely.
Maybe just a letter also to them, explaining them the situation and,
And I'm actually due to send them a letter anyhow, because it's about that time of year that I negotiate all the dance ride tickets and so forth. So I can include that this year now, because actually I waited until this meeting before I wrote that letter, so I will include that all in as well. Because normally I'll send a letter, then we end up having a conversation over the phone as well, so I will do so.
no, thank you.
Can we all agree then that we should meter them, you know, this year, just to find out what that usage is and,
Well,
And then go
If
from
Tim,
there.
Tim can meter it this year and we'll leave things like they've been.
and I figure that'll help when you go to negotiate, you'll know how much is actually being used to.
We'll have a reference anyhow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
So we're leaving it like it is this year except
Yeah.
for, metering.
Yeah, I think it's good to track it, but I don't want us to commit to necessarily charging the
No, I don't
Apple
like
Festival.
No, I don't.
No.
No.
Okay.
All right. Any more questions about the use of the water and electric?
And I don't think we really need a motion on that. I think that can just be a direction to Mr. Lee. Okay.
All right, thank you for coming in, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
Appreciate it.
We appreciate it.
It's not on the agenda, but under new business, we got before the meeting, financial reports from Budget Officer Scott Evans. Mr. Evans?
Thank you, WJ. Okay, I hope I have these in the same order that you do, 'cause mine's not stapled, so I think the first page should be the usual sales tax report. Is that what you have?
Yep.
Okay, I think we're good there. Okay, so the voucher amount for this month between sales and home rule is $236,493. A little bit down from this time last year, not by much, ever so slightly, but you know, we've had 3 months just slightly below last year's and 1 month above, so again, it's too early to really make a projection, but I mean, I don't foresee us being vastly different than the 2018 number, but we'll see. We have a lot of months to go, so still not bad numbers at all. And on the income tax side, we had a pleasant surprise this month. The vouchered income tax receipt was $76,941, so about $9,000 or so more than last year at this time. So that's a good number. And again, that one is you know, always, it's all over the place. You know, it's just whatever Springfield brings in for that month, we get our share based on the revenue sharing formula. So, but so far, not bad numbers on either category. Those are through April. So, switching to the expense side, the next one should be the healthcare cost. Is that what's on yours?
Yeah.
All right, and we're going right down the line. Okay, so this is the first time I did this report this year because tax season kind of got in the way and I wasn't able to get that to you. But it's a very important one, as you know, because between the general fund and water sewer, the healthcare, you know, is our budget's almost $700,000. So it's an enormous number next to our payroll costs. And so through the 3 months, we have spent on the general fund side $164,721, and on the water fund side we spent $38,000. And if you project that out, really, we would need to project that being 4 months because March, or actually February has 2 months in it. So we really have 4 months of premiums in these 3 months that I have here. So, but if I project that out, we still should be within budget on general fund and water and sewer both. And of course, I always break this down so we can see the components of that. Obviously, the premiums to Aetna are the big number, naturally. But then you can see what the pay flex is costing us. And again, that is essentially us making the decision in order to get a reasonable rate with Aetna, or anybody. We have agreed to more or less self-insure the smaller things, the co-pays and deductibles, and so that's what that line represents. And then the third grouping, of course, represents the vision and dental, which we pay for that for the employees. And the fourth line is the life insurance, and you see that very small component of it. And then really the retirees' health insurance and the reimbursements. Really, the retirees don't cost us much because they essentially, we provide them the coverage, but then they pay for the coverage out of their paychecks typically. And so, so I think we have plenty of money in the budget for this, unless something strange would happen. Of course, the policy year ends in September 30th, and we never know what that's going to be on the renewals. Which again I think is why the pay flex, the HRA idea is helpful, because it puts more of those small manageable dollars on our backs, and not so much on the insurance company, to where they feel compelled to jack up our rates more. So it's still, we've had over a year of doing that now. This is, I guess, like the 15th month of doing that. So I think after this year, having 2 full years of the HRA, I think we'll get better and better information on how it's being utilized, and so far so good though. So okay, next reports are on the salaries for the city-wide all funds versus budget. And for the month of March, we budgeted $275,000 and change across the city in all funds for salaries, and we actually spent $239,000, so we were $37,000 under budget for the month. And that really took a bite out of the over budget amount year to date we had been running through 2 months. So we came back and went in a positive direction in March. In most departments, really. I think all departments probably had some positive directions there. So, and that's a good thing too, because obviously the salaries are the biggest cost we have. And then the final report is simply just the general fund by itself through the first 3 months, what we actually spent and brought in versus what we budgeted for those same 3 months. So through the first 3 months, total expenditures was $1,180,000. For the same time frame, we have budgeted $1,284,000, so we're running about $100,000 under budget so far in those 3 months. And we're actually a little bit over budget on the revenues. We brought in $1,306,000 through the first 3 months, and we budgeted essentially the same, $1,284,000, essentially a balanced budget. So we're running about $125,000 surplus at this point.
Scott, is that not listed properly then on the?
It ain't, I don't understand it that way.
Because to me, when I read the over there, the parentheses is in deficit, and then the over under 125,914 is in parentheses, just when I initially.
Well, are you talking about the surplus line?
All the way to the bottom line.
Yeah, right. So the surplus itself is a positive number because we do have a positive income.
Okay.
The overage, underage thing would be a negative because it's any overage on that line would be a negative. So we budgeted for clearing $573 through 3 months, and we've actually netted $126,000.
All right, well, it confused me momentarily the way that it was displayed on the page.
I'm still confused.
You're telling me it's good news, and I believe you.
We have 125,000.
Well, what's the 125,914 then?
That is the amount that we have exceeded what our budgeted net surplus was gonna be. That's a good
We have a
thing.
bunch.
That's a good thing. We're above that.
Okay, all right, I'm fixed.
This report hasn't changed in the year since I've
I
done
know
it,
that,
so.
it's only been 14 years though, almost, so.
Anyway, point is, it's a decent start to the year, for sure.
So when I get it, I'll get it.
Are there any questions for Mr. Evans?
No.
Alright, thank you, Scott.
Yep.
And then the only item under new business, is there any public comment under budget and finance? No public comment, move out of budget and finance.
Thank you, WJ. That takes us to Building and Grounds, chaired by Mr. Gary McCollum. Gary?
On old business, is consideration declaring a list of vacant real estate as surplus property. That's this property here that we had, everybody had one in their packet last week.
Yeah, we had it in our packet the last go
The
around.
last go around, not this go around.
I'd entertain a motion on that.
My only question is, WJ, I forwarded you a couple of addresses off of that, concerns of the other side. I don't know if you can address it or not, but
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really gotten a chance to talk to Mike about that.
But
You
I
know,
think-
I mean, I talked to him initially, about it, but not about the specific ones, and I don't know how far he was going to go.
well, I think I've marked those off the list anyway, Gary. Had I there were 3, I think, properties that we might be interested in maybe trying to use to trade with, on that property on South 17th.
Yeah, but we still need to declare the surplus property, don't we, even to do that with?
Yes, yes.
If you're planning on selling them or trading them or doing something
Yeah,
with them, you should go ahead and
surplus,
declare them as surplus.
Very good.
Okay, yeah, I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. And then it's consideration of resolution to sell real estate by city tax. That, if the mayor will need to do that too, because if the mayor makes a deal on something on 17th Street, on some of the property, and I've already, on 2 of the properties, you'll have a letter in your packet, the guy's made an offer on one of them. And then the other half a lot over on 17th Street, the church owns half and we own half, and the church says we give them the other half, they take it. They would like to build on it in the future. And that's the 2 properties in there. I've got people interested in the other, but I haven't said anything to them until everybody gets something worked out on the property. Go ahead, Denny.
So what you're wanting is a motion that the staff, but will this still be brought to the city council to be for approval?
Yeah.
The way it would work is that under the procedures we've set up, they're declared surplus if you approve the staff selling the properties. There's one newspaper publication. If anything is done, before anything is done with the property, selling them, or if they're gonna be trader or whatever, if they're gonna be done with them, then it comes back to the city council to approve, for final approval.
Well, we got one on Oak Street here that the guy's been maintaining, and he's made an offer on it. And then the church, I talked to them, and they will take that half a lot as they get. And the others, I've got down, I talked to people, but I told them there was nothing much, what we're gonna do yet, but would you be interested in it if we go to get rid of it? And they said they would be. So we figure the other part out. I don't think Oak Street, I think if we pass this, we could vote to get rid of it tonight if everybody's.
We can do that. There's a separate procedure to do that. If you've got something worked out where we've provided, if it is a lot owned by the city, it's a burden on the city to continue to own the property, which here would be a burden to continue to be liable to mow the lot if it's not otherwise of value to the city. You could go ahead and deal with that individually. But if you wanted to include the others to make the list for the city staff to then try to work on selling, then those could be included
So these are the
separately.
only-
So if you wanted to include some to deal with individually, we can do those individually.
There's only 2 that I've got. The one on Oak Street, the gentleman has put a letter in here with his offers. I asked the church if they'd be interested in a half a lot on 17th. The reason why we didn't get rid of it in the past, because we thought we was gonna need a place maybe to drill a well. If the fish place went over on 17th, we just had to board under the road. It's the only reason why we kept it as long as we have. And
This motion, I'll make the motion to sell the surplus, as long as I understand that's not voting to sell this one for 300, correct?
no,
Totally separate, yeah, I'll make the motion,
that-
then I'll make that motion too.
Okay.
second,
Second.
all in favor?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
What is the difference between this surplus sale and the mow-to-own program?
Well, before we can do anything with it, Richard, you take this part of it.
Okay, well, the motorhome program, the motorhome program, we've not really done anything to implement what's been approved by the ordinance. The motorhome program will be the city council developing a list of which properties to list under the motorhome program.
Okay,
Now, of course, if the city's trying to sell properties, there's nobody interested in, the city can then enter into agreement individually with whoever would want to, who qualifies under the motorhome program,
Okay.
under the standards we put forth. But it's first determining the list of these properties are under the motorhome program, and if there are people who are interested, then they go through the process of applying, getting approval by the city council to be in, and for that lot, for them to then apply and then sign the agreement to meet the terms that the city set forth by the ordinance, to then own the property after they go through that, I believe, 2-year period of maintaining the property.
so in other words, the program was approved, but it never was implemented?
Well, we just have to get to the point to where the list
Well,
is
we-
created to put it in.
We
Okay.
continue
It's
to
there.
sort of cull these properties, you know, in one way or the other. And I think the mow-to-own program is sort of going to be the program of last resort after we get through selling,
Sell these.
you know, and everything else that we've got going on. We've got so many different things going on with these properties, that it can become kind of confusing at times.
Okay. Thank you.
Richard, on my part, when we get done, we declare this. And the deal is with this, we do, all this is surplus property. If we're not trying to sell it next week because there's a deal trying to work with the lots and the bank and 17th Street property. Okay, so these two properties here that I've got listed tonight does not affect that, right, Will? Oak Street and the half a lot on 17th Street.
No, I believe.
I don't think we can approve the half lot on 17th Street tonight, because I think it would need to be a specific agended item if we're going to treat it like the Oak Street, which is on the agenda.
Okay, well, it's a giveaway anyway, I mean, and church offered to take it, cause they own half the lot. They said they would like to build on it in the future, and I told them that as far as I was concerned, I think the council would give it to them.
Well, we could get that agenda to take care of it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we just have to.
All right, so the motion would include all of those that would be surplus except that 7th Street lot and the Oak Street lot that we're talking about that's on the agenda. Is that correct?
Okay, that's all on old business.
Correct.
Correct.
Under new business,
I guess, has there been a vote
consideration of
yet, or-
offer.
That's why I was wondering, did we vote on it?
Yeah, we did.
We did.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
We're in favor. Gloria.
We voted and then go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I asked the question on the
Okay,
phone.
okay.
That's all under old business. Under new business, consideration of offer for 1516 Oak Street, which I think everybody has got it in their package. This gentleman took care of it. I was by there just a week ago. He's got it mowed and trimmed up nice.
He's taken care of it for a long time here.
I don't know where the property's at, and I don't know the gentleman we're talking about.
I don't know
but-
him either.
Yeah, but my question is, when we were trying to get $600 out of these lots to cover most of our expense, or part of it anyway, why are we gonna sell one for 300? I'm just asking the
Well,
question, it just,
I know he took care of it for a year and a half or 2 years. If it was mowed on program,
yeah.
we done that with it. We
Yeah.
wouldn't be getting anything out of it.
I know that, but we don't have, I mean,
Well,
respectfully, we don't have the mow to to own program in place, so.
Yeah, I know that, and he took care of it
Mr.
to
Pittman?
make his neighborhood look better. Go ahead.
And I know we've talked about even with selling them and the Moto Own program, approaching neighbors on both sides and doing it half lots. Is there a neighbor on the other side of that lot?
No, it's a
No,
vacant
it's a
house
vacant
that's
house.
on the other side. This is, you go down Oak Street between 16th and 15th. The guy from Carbondale owns the lots on the end. There's an old house that's there that he really keeps the trash picked up and stuff, and then this lot in between. I talked to the older gentleman down there from Carbondale. He cleaned up quite a bit down there. Very nice guy, but he said he wasn't gonna take over any more lots in Murphysboro.
I have a question for Darren Mills. Darren, do you have any recollection of this particular property at all? I know with your guys out mowing, was it on your list, but somebody was?
If it was, it wasn't something that I was aware of, but.
And if somebody was taking care of it, maybe it wouldn't come across your
I
radar
would tell you,
screen?
it's in my neighborhood,
Hey,
but I've
Mr.
never
Kennedy?
called to have it taken care of.
It's a house we tore down, or I tore down.
Okay.
This
You
guy
know
was
where
mowing the yard.
Stradlins used to live?
Mr. Kennedy?
It's right next to that,
This guy was mowing the grass before we ever tore the house down.
yeah.
Okay,
It was old Stradling property.
Yes.
okay.
You know, it's just, I don't mind going out and talk to these people on the property, but right now I've got people interested in some other property, but I told them the only way we sell it's in front of the council, and we had some stuff worked out on the other, so.
Well, if he's truly been mowing it for 18 months, I don't know how many mows a person puts in over 18 months, but
Some not very many.
I mean,
It doesn't
If-
look bad ever, I will tell you that. I have to go by it every single day when I leave my house.
if he's mowing it to the point where we don't have to mow it, then he's saved us more than $600 in our city staff. Mr. Pittman?
I mean, can we make an offer to him for $600 now, or once we can get this property added to that, whatever it needs to be done to be added to our Moto Own program, we'll give him credit for the time that he's done it the whole, the last 18 months, and if it takes 2 years.
I make a motion to accept his offer for.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nay? Ayes have it. I will tell this gentleman, I told I told him when I talked to him that Santa would draw up a quitclaim deed.
Okay,
Well, I'll have to do some paperwork because it needs to be, we'll have to have an ordinance in effect that can be signed setting forth that this has been done under our statute, under our ordinance.
Just for curiosity's sake, I didn't wanna ask the question before we voted, but what does it cost us
Mm-hmm.
in legal fees and the other to get rid of a piece of property, even if we were going to give it to them? I'd like to know the answer to that.
I don't know,
It all depends on what we're all's involved and what we've done and what
I'd like to have a kind of a guideline, to where
what procedures we follow.
if we try to at least get that amount out of it, the people know that we're not making any money on it, we're just trying to cover our expense. No, we're not. And,
But we're not giving an insured abstract deed and title, we're just giving a quitclaim deed.
I mean, in the long run, we're saving money on this.
I understand that, but I guess, I would like to know what it cost us.
Well, Danny, like we talked one other time, they mind getting rid of this property so we don't have to mow it, free our guys up. And I know I stopped and talked to this gentleman here, and I don't know him, but from talking to him the other day.
well, we're talking about you an awful lot without letting you talk.
Yeah, a lot.
You make more tax money on it, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And it looks good, he's took
Yeah,
well care
it's
of it.
always taken care of, I will tell you that.
Do you have anything you wanna share with the council? I mean,
I don't think it was approved, I guess I just need to wait to do whatever other paperwork.
well, then I direct our city attorney to draw up the paperwork as it needs to be drawn up after obviously we've already voted to take action on it.
Correct.
And then if you want to, if you could get with our city attorney and coordinate with them, we could make the paperwork happen. All right?
If I could, I'd like to thank you for taking care of that lot, mowing it, and it kind of makes me feel good to see that people still do have pride. I know they do have pride in this town, but to go the extra step and take care of another yard, really appreciate it.
It always looks good.
Is there any public comment on building and grounds? There is none, we'll move out of building and grounds.
All right, that takes us to community relations, chaired by Mr. John Irvis. John, good to have you back.
Thank you, Mayor. We have no old business.
John, can I add some old business real quick?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I had, you were not here, I had asked under, community relations last meeting, Baldwin Cross is having another scramble and we sponsored a whole last year. And, Gina has given me $10 if anybody else wants to. I did go ahead and pay the fee.
You say yes.
Nope.
I was gonna ask Kathy this morning and she wasn't at the Bible study, so.
You know who's got the money?
Yeah.
Thanks for it. Just kidding, I'll bet.
All right, if we can move along.
Anyway, I got an envelope if anybody wants to pay me. Gina, thank you.
All right, we have consideration request for street closure, June 1st, cruise night relay for life.
We have, Mr. Sayer with us here.
Easy on this Mr. Mayor.
Hey.
I apologize, I'm in my work clothes, I didn't get a chance to go home and change. You won't take one, pass it down, that's just, I pretty much decided after kind of talking to folks in the community and some other folks around that the Walnut Street closure was probably not the best idea, at least for now anyway. So what I've done is I've kind of just edited everything kind of normally in the past and extended it out from starting at 9th Street at the intersection there, Chestnut and 9th Street, and going west and be on 13th Street full stop. The idea with using Walnut Street originally was because we wanted the extra room to put all the cars out on Walnut Street, which potentially we could have 400 cars at least that night, on top of, I want to say a figure of 25 to 3,000 people in town on that particular night. So I was trying not to take parking away from spectators that are coming into town, which was my reasoning for using Walnut. But this will kind of help filter some of the cars, just going to be spread out all down through there, which is going to make things a little more interesting, but I think we can get it done with what I've got right here, if that looks like something you all would approve of. We're going to have a live band that night. Of course, Relay for Life will be set up in the administrative building in their parking lot. And then, of course, we'll have some movie star appearances there in town. We're going to have them set up and kind of try to work around everything. It's going to be a lot going on all night. But if this is something that looks like we can do, I passed one off to Darren there too to see if he would have enough barricades and stuff to handle that. So
Good enough room to put 400 cars there?
probably not.
I was gonna say.
We'll try, but
Mr. Bills, what are your thoughts?
We have plenty of barricades. The last time that you had a big show, you used a lot over there by the old Curtis building as well. Was that something?
we did, that was the night we had the smoking, the semi trucks, the smoking bandit thing night. And that worked well for them, having the big trucks, we had a place to put them. But I did receive some feedback from people that do come to town from tri-state areas. Some folks are maybe not, they have mobility issues with walking very far. So I'm trying to keep parking lots available to these folks, that children and elderly folks that don't have to hike 10 blocks to get to us. So I'm trying to save the bigger lots closer to us for spectators coming in just to visit and look around a little bit. I'm not gonna leave that out of the equation, but I was trying to maybe accommodate folks just driving in just to check it out, you know. Our car show people are pretty good about parking where they need to be, and we don't have to worry about them, but, I did get a few phone calls from folks that have hey, where am I supposed to park? We'll make arrangements, so that's what I'm trying to.
Well, my question is, I know that originally you were talking about Walnut Street and we were efforting to try to make that happen. I know that there was some discussion about reimbursing the city for the extra time on the street and the police department. Was that something ultimately that just budgetarily the cruise nights didn't want to deal with?
Well, not quite so much. That was gonna be a big chunk of change of our sponsor money that comes from the community itself, and I didn't wanna take money away from the cruise nights to put into something that was kind of a, let's see how this is gonna work deal. I didn't wanna do that. And then it was kind of after feeling it out, kinda asking folks around the community, just, hey, what do you guys think about this? Well, I got a lot of, that's a bad idea, cause we're closing down the whole street, we got detours around, and it's inconvenient. And it's all or none, cause you gotta do the whole street or none. So I got feedback on it's a bad idea, it's inconvenient, let's not do that, let's just leave it alone. And I thought, fair enough, we can do that.
Well, I think we can approve this as it's presented. I doubt.
I'd make that motion.
Before you do that, what would you think about on the north side of Walnut Street between, I guess, 9th Street and the 13th Street? If you wanted to put up handicap parking only, that would give the people a place to park.
On that little north section of 9th there,
Well, I'm talking about from 9th Street on down to 13th Street on the north side of the street. Here, I'm not very good at this. From here to here,
yeah,
on the north side of this, be on the north side of the street, correct? Just, if you would want to put up a sign through there, handicap parking, that gives those people that do have a handicap or mobility issues.
on Walnut Street itself, in the, which lane, east or westbound lane? It'd have to be in the westbound lane.
Yeah, well, that'd be on the north side of Walnut, wouldn't it? Yeah. I'm just throwing that out, I don't know if that would, I don't know if you've got any handicap signs.
That's a good idea.
It would seem to me we'd be better off designating handicap parking somewhere on the south side of Walnut Street so that people with some sort of, won't have to cross a high volume traffic.
Disregard my earlier.
No,
That's a
great idea. That's a great idea.
That's a good thought.
Yeah, we do try to limit folks crossing the wall to
Door
just
under the traffic.
safety and,
Right.
I'll make that motion to approve this.
okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
That's all I got, folks, unless you have any questions, concerns, or.
Thank you,
All
John.
right, I appreciate y'all, thank you.
Then we have a request for, Run to Succeed, I guess, is that 7th Street Road?
It's a new route.
It's in our packet.
Yeah,
I'll make that motion.
Who's this question? What organization is this?
It's a business.
It's what?
It's a business. Run to Succeed is a business.
It's a business?
Well, that's what
It's
he does.
RTS.
Okay,
That's
okay.
what he does.
Well, I don't know that.
It threw me off too from me being in there.
I'll second it.
Any other questions?
No.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No? So there is a fee.
That he was paid.
Yeah.
Now, this is a different, race route than what a lot of ours are.
Mhm.
It's only 1.7 exactly. And probably we should ask Street if this is,
Yeah. You see that, Darren?
Come back. I seen it on your
does it seem to be any kind of problem?
Is it a
I've
problem?
discussed it with Sandra, the
The
route
problem?
and everything, Sandra and I have discussed all of that. Everything is fine the way we look at it, except for the fact of, on the front, you'll notice that the race will be let go in waves.
Yes.
And that's a time thing. That means it's double, triple, quadruple the time that you would normally have if you just have everybody go at one time.
You have to have several groups of patrol people for different ways. Is that right?
I mean, it could go to that because what we're used to is one in front and one in back,
Uh-huh,
and let's just get it going, get everybody moving. And that was what she and I discussed about, that part of it.
We have a start time, but not really a time frame. It can go the last wave at 5 p.m. So, just saying. So we need like a time frame.
We might get that from them.
Yeah,
All
'cause
we
they're-
have is a starting time, and I guess maybe the time frame
June,
depends
end
on
of
how many
June before they do
participants
it.
they have though.
Sure.
Mhm.
They maybe could start them all in one.
Yeah,
But
'cause
let's
those-
say the last
those
race-
roads are pretty wide, so you're
They
not
might
gonna have any
start 5 or 10
congestion as
minutes
far as
apart,
Yeah.
too. It may
Yeah.
not take long.
Yeah.
to set it off in waves. We were just wanting them all to go around the same time.
Well, the day of the event is quite some time off. Why don't we approve this pending the police chief gathering more information about the time frame of the event? I mean, is that essentially gonna be the primary concern? I know, because if they got waves going off, like Barb said, from 10 a.m. until 2 o'clock in the afternoon or something, that changes the scenario, and we may want to push back and try to get them to define their event a little bit better.
Or the fee structure on it.
And I think maybe Sandra discussed that with them,
Mhm.
about having a little bit of an issue with that part of it. So I think they could be aware of that from our side already.
Okay, because this is gonna be your primarily the police department's issue, obviously the street department as well, but you could get it to this place where you're satisfied with it, chief, and I think generally the council is in support of these things.
You know, actually, those people ought to be here when they request it, so you can ask them those questions.
Yes,
Before
I
we
agree.
even, I mean, I made the motion, but before we even should be considering any of that, the people should come here so you can ask them before we even consider it on the agenda.
all right, well, this is approved, but I would say that we'll hold this on the agenda again to the next meeting for further information. All right?
Sounds good. Solid new business, any public comment?
I don't have any, I don't know if there's any public comment, but I did feel as if I ought to mention that I know we have Mr. Clover here with us, and we did an awful, I wasn't sure you were here in some sense with cruise night, but also I wondered if you were waiting for us to give you any feedback on the list of properties that we shared with you recently.
Those down there on Third and Fourth scared me.
Yeah, okay,
My boat ain't big enough.
understood. All right.
How much this other stuff? We was talking about selling and like the ones on Alexander over there, commercial.
Those are properties that I am looking to try to potentially work something out with First Bank and Trust in a swap situation. So at this very moment, I can't commit to those particular lots.
You wanna sell that one for the middle, isn't
Well, why don't I get with you? I don't wanna keep you in the meeting if you are waiting for us to have this discussion, but now that we've got all those declared surplus, why don't you and I get together sometime in the next couple of weeks and we could go over that list and talk about what you may be interested in.
Okay, and one other quick question, Chris, don't mind nothing. I said here, 4, 5, 6 meetings ago, you brought up the surplus on your road signs.
Mm-hmm.
I've called a couple of times and nobody knows nothing about it. Are they still for sale or you're throwing a ditch or what would they?
They're definitely surplus property, and we definitely still have them. I have been thinking about seeing if there's interest in people purchasing them, so we could take that money and either, put it into the demo fund or give it to the food bank or something. I'm trying to figure out the right thing to do with them, so we could sit down and, as a part of our meeting, discuss that as well, because we still have them. I don't think we've gotten rid of any of them. I just want to get the best out of them for the community I can.
They're still over there in the building, aren't they?
Yeah.
Or- and signs,
Mr.
Darren
Kennedy.
does them every week.
I do have someone that wants to buy some of those.
Okay,
He's made a number on my desk.
all right, very good.
Mr. Clover's interested too, though, so before we,
We'll work it out.
yeah. No.
Good thing is we got multiples of any of them, so. All right, that's all I have to do. Thank you. Let me interject.
Problem with that.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Mr. Clover.
Concludes community relations.
That takes us into public improvement, chaired by Mr. Mike Bash.
Thank you, Mayor. We have several properties listed under old business that we're leaving on the radar so we can keep track of what's going on. The first three, 102 North 10th, the Laclede Hotel and the Old Depot is the same. We haven't heard any update on those properties. The 111 North 19th Street, they're still working on the north wall. That's the one that's a big pole barn. It had a big hole in the wall. I don't know if the wind knocked it out, but Eric has been in contact with them. And Eric went down there and they are still working on that north wall. The property at North 17th Street. Oh, no, the other one on North 19th that Mr. Cripps owned. He has put some screening up and he has removed some of the old vehicles. And Eric said he has been in contact with him and he is working with Eric as well on that property. North 17th Street, that is the lot next to 17th Street. Eric has spoken with the owner and he will be cleaning out the building. And he's, again, is working with Eric on that. South 14th Street, the house has been torn down and they have started loading dumpsters. Eric, do you have anything you want to add to that? You've been out and looked at the properties?
That's it on those.
I can add that I did speak with Martin Schultemo, stopped by my office today, and he said that he had another dumpster coming in to continue to clean up the materials from the house on South 14th Street. And he made mention that he was gonna put a new roof on the old depot this year.
I believe Alderman McComb has.
They did unload 2 track holes last week at the old shoe factory on South 19th.
Okay.
Rawson was down there. They did unload 2 of them. And I forgot to drive back by, called Eric's office and told them that they were down there. I forgot to get back by and see what they've done.
I spoke with Mr. Rawson today, and he, I think, plans on starting tomorrow.
Something like that. I did get the paperwork back from him, copies of it, that he has to send to the state, the asbestos part of that. He's got the demo paperwork. I think the only thing now is water to keep spraying on that building as it comes down for the asbestos problem.
Tim Lee and Ryan have talked, and whenever he gets ready to collapse what remains of the structure, they are going to meter the hydrant water that they're going to use to keep the materials wet as it's being pushed in. And so after that is complete, we can see how much water is used, and then, you know, build in.
Then we can take your brick back down and we'll.
And we will ceremoniously throw that in the big muddy river.
Wouldn't have to go very far to do that right now.
Yeah.
Do we have any other comment from the alderman? Yes.
I have a question. Have you heard from Jack's Meat Market? Did they request the permission for?
I talked to him last Friday, I think it was. He came in with an architect. The architect is trying to figure out the best way to rebuild on that lot. Since he has no other property, he's gonna have to do the best he can with it. That's what they gotta figure out right now. Yes, he's gonna rebuild at this point.
Thank you.
But he's got a demolition permit, correct?
Yeah, yeah. And he'll have to do the asbestos thing too. That's a state law, businesses. But he's been told all this, but he wants to see what he can and can't do with that lot.
All right.
Okay, under old business, do we have any comment from the public on old business? Under new business, we have a presentation of feasibility eligibility study for downtown TIF and a presentation of downtown TIF plan. And at that time, I will turn it over.
Yes, thank you guys very much. Again, my name is Keith Moran. I'm with Moran Economic Development. Been hired by the city to help put together your downtown TIF redevelopment plan and project. You might also reference it as Murphysboro TIF number 2, but I prefer to incorporate the downtown element into it because this is very much about revitalizing, getting folks to reinvest in our downtown area. If you recall last meeting, we had a preliminary draft. We approved sort of an expansion of the TIF district area. The city council does have a packet in there, and just after page, just following page 4 is an example of the, sorry. Time to give my dog a dog collar, apparently. Apologize for that. But just after page 4 is the TIF redevelopment area that I'll reference throughout tonight's presentation. I do also have a map of the area, if anybody else is interested in the area that we're talking about. I'll pass those along to our friends in the public. So that you guys have a good feel for the area that we're talking about. Actually, a lot of the area that we're referencing is a lot of where we've got some surplus properties, where I know we've got some properties that are quote unquote on our watch list, and a lot of in quite a few infrastructure and utility issues in our area as well. And so the first portion of our presentation is we'll just kind of talk about how the area qualifies, because we can't just circle an area in the city and say, hey, here's our TIF. Certain factors need to exist within this area in order for us to put together a redevelopment plan or a plan to improve that particular area. Now, one of the first things that we look for in the area is how old are the buildings in our area? Well, we've got about 425 parcels, and I'll start kind of going through this on page 6, where we have about 425 total parcels of property in the TIF district area, about 380 or so that would be developed, and on those developed properties we have about 410 structures, 380 of which are over the age of 35. Not uncommon considering where our focus area is. Not uncommon whatsoever. So basically 93% of our properties are over the age of 35. What that means, because we exceed the threshold of more than 50%, we need to find 3 qualifying factors that exist in this area in order for us to establish a TIF. Well, ultimately we have 8 factors that exist to a qualifying degree that allow us to move forward. Some of those factors are, we're not proud of these, but that's what this TIF is going to do. It's going to fix a lot of these issues that we're aware of. We do have some dilapidated structures in our TIF area. We have about 38 examples of dilapidated structures that, in some form or way, probably need to come down before they be able to be improved or fixed. We've got obsolescence, meaning we have buildings that have outgrown their original use, meaning they can't really serve the purpose that they were built for. But what we also have is economic obsolescence in our area, where we've got properties that have failed to have any sort of economic growth. Basically, when you look at our area, and I'll comment on this a little further down the line, is the EAV, meaning the equalized assessed valuation in our area, has decreased by $630,000 over the last 5 years. And we kind of talk about that in a map following page 7. We also have deteriorating conditions in our area, not uncommon for structures, seeing the age of the structures, some of the history behind some of these, but we got considerable deterioration in a lot of the structures in our area. What we're talking about are not dilapidated or falling down, but just issues with roofing, sides, siding, windows, foundations, those types of things that we would all look to as deteriorating. We also have surface deterioration within that 294 of the developed parcels. What we're talking about there are issues with the sidewalks, unkempt gravel areas, cracked and deteriorated roadway surfacing, and weeds, and grass and weeds in parking lots and other surface areas. So the area suffers from deterioration factors. We also, which isn't uncommon considering the amount of deterioration and dilapidation, we do have excessive vacancies. With approximately 15% of the structures in the area exhibiting either completely vacant or maybe inhabited on the first floor, but vacant on the second and third floors of some of these buildings. And so we have a considerable amount of vacancies in our area. Utilities, old part of town, a lot of history here. We're going to have our older utility season when we kind of talk about that. got a water, most of our water mains, and we work, thank you to your engineering firm for helping us confirm, work with us on some of these issues. We've got water mains that are over the age of 50 years old. Some of them are undersized, more susceptible to breakage, and constantly you guys are making repairs to these water lines. You guys are also looking to upgrade some storage tanks and replacement of the aforementioned water lines, water mains and hydrants. You've got a sanitary sewer system that dates back 60 years. Got a lot of infiltration issues that need to be corrected, and that causes issue from a utility standpoint. Overall, about 95% of the area is impacted by inadequate utilities, and so that becomes a factor. The next two, deleterious land use or layout and lack of community planning, kind of go side by side. Or your first comprehensive plan was done in 1964. Prior to that, most of the city was already platted and mapped out, so to speak, and developed. And in an ideal world, if we were going to lay out the city of Murphysboro a little bit better, we would probably not have as many mixed uses. We'd have more truck routes. We wouldn't have parcels of regular size and shape. And so we would probably just map out the city a little bit different. And that's where the area falls under having the issue of deleterious land use and layout and lack of community planning. Lastly, from a developed standpoint, we have issues with declining property values. And what that means is we targeted the right area. I mean, your TIF is meant to improve areas that have suffered from a lack of investment or have issues that I've already mentioned that are negatively impacting the area, which ultimately means they're impacting the equalized assessed valuation. Basically, you've had four out of the last 5 years, the property values in this area have declined. What's also happened is, and when we compare that to the rest of the city, the rest of the city, for the most part, is performing at better than what our area is. And so that also helps us understand, hey, yeah, we are probably focusing on redevelopment of an area that really could use some help or some improvement. And so we do have some vacant or undeveloped properties. They qualify a little bit differently than developed properties. We have issues of diversity of ownership, obsolete planning, and deterioration of site improvements. And we also have EAV issues in those undeveloped properties. And we have about 41 of those properties of the 425 total parcels in our TIF. The area also is impacted, especially in our northern areas. I'm not saying it has a massive impact on it, but the issue, you do have area consists of one or more unused quarries, mines, or strip mines. So the area is undermined as well, which impacts the ability for some of your deposits, or it could impact the ability for some of these properties to develop accordingly. And I think most of what I've just stated isn't a massive, isn't massive news. Yeah. But that's what your TIF's done. That's why we're here. And that's not uncommon for TIF district areas to be overlaid in our downtown areas, because there is a lot of history there. There are historic issues. We've got, we'll have some delinquent property owners. We'll have issues with our utilities. And that's what a good TIF program is designed to improve. Your comp plan did do a really, really nice, by the way, kudos to your folks that worked so hard on your new comprehensive plan. That helped us in the next portion of it, our redevelopment plan, where we kind of talk about, okay, the first portion of our presentation was to kind of talk about how the area qualifies, but now we'll get more to the fun stuff, the plan. What do we intend to use TIF funds for? I might also add from a TIF perspective, just so everyone knows, is how folks utilize their properties today is how they can utilize their properties tomorrow. By being part of a TIF or being incorporated in a TIF, there's no eminent domain. My property's going to remain zoned the same. However, provided I'm following all city ordinances and laws, I'll be fine. There really is no difference between being in a TIF or not being in a TIF. Ultimately, the advantages of there are no negative advantages of being in a TIF. but I guess the positive about being a TIF is we're gonna have a plan designed to stimulate investment and a revenue stream that's gonna be dedicated to improving a lot of the conditions that we just kind of talked about from a qualifying standpoint. And so, in terms of our presentation, a lot of this is, we're not gonna go through all of it, but a lot of this is documented within the report that we've given. And if you don't have any questions regarding the eligibility study, I would just ask for a motion to kind of proceed with the TIF plan, which I've already kind of touched on, as it stands.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Who made the motion?
I did.
He did, and she seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
I believe I have to have a roll call for this. Is
Yeah.
that correct, Richard?
Well, it wouldn't be a bad idea.
Okay.
It won't hurt.
Okay.
Is this a
This
table
is
vote
the
situation?
promotion to proceed with, is that what your motion was? To proceed with the TIF?
Downtown
The
TIF
chip.
plan.
TIF plan, okay. TIF
Okay.
plan, okay.
Alderman Hughes. Yes. Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman McComb.
Yes.
Alderman Otis.
Yes.
Alderman Bratton. Alderman Bastian.
Yes.
Alderman Campos.
Yes.
Alderman Pitt.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. I think we need another motion on the table, and the motion would be to place the downtown TIF plan and feasibility study on file and through sending the downtown TIF plan and feasibility study to all the affected taxing districts. Is that correct?
If I could just touch on a little bit before actually going through that, the answer is yes.
You want to
we will
go
need
through that first? Okay.
Yeah,
that's fine.
just in terms of, like I said, I touched on what our aims and goals are. We have a redevelopment plan in what I would call the second half of our booklet.
Okay.
But basically, a lot of it conforms with the comprehensive plan. A lot of it conforms with a lot of you guys' thoughts and visions for what should happen, what should occur in our downtown area. But basically, we have a number of issues that we just got done talking about. Our TIF plan allows for correcting of those issues. I think at some point, we're gonna look towards, where we have deteriorating buildings. I think at some point, when the TIF gets going, we'll get, maybe allocate some money towards a facade improvement program. So we can aid in rehabbing, helping to aid in rehabbing some of our buildings. Where we have issues, where we have dilapidated buildings, and we're gonna have to, use some money to demolish those buildings. Our plan allows for demolition of some of those unsafe structures. Our plan also calls for restoration and rehabilitation of some of our historic structures as well. Also allows for corrections in public infrastructure where we have our water and sewer issues, where we have our street and surface deterioration, utilizing TIF funds to make improvements to our streets and surface areas, our sidewalks, curb and gutter. Also allowing you guys to do some beautification efforts, utilizing the TIF fund, if not to make some beautification, but also using a fund to help support further grants. For instance, Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program has a grant. Let's say they want to give you $100,000. They'll say we need $20,000 as a match. Well, you can utilize the TIF funds as your matching funds in order to get a large allocation dedicated to beautification efforts in your downtown. Help you guys do some things in marketing. I know we're doing a lot to improve the image, and I love what you guys are doing, by the way. It's ahead of the game with a lot of communities we work with. But there are some marketing monies that you guys can use with TIF proceeds. I think that's, I can go farther with it, but I think you kind of catch my drift. Your TIF plan is going to allow you guys to dedicate revenue streams to all those things that are ultimately going to help improve this particular area. And so with that, I would greatly appreciate that motion.
So moved.
Second.
We gonna take a roll call on that again? Okay.
Alderman Hughes.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Cone. Alderman Urbis.
Yes.
Alderman Bratton.
Yes.
Alderman Bastian.
Yes.
Alderman Campos.
Yes.
Alderman Pittman.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. Did you-
Sir, I just have housekeeping. Basically, went ahead and placed this on file. If there are any questions or concerns or comments, please get with me and we can make changes. If there's some clerical errors, those types of things, let us know. But your next meeting, we will ask, I won't be there, but I'll get this to you guys in good order. We'll have an ordinance establishing our public hearing, which as of now is set for July 9th. It's a regularly scheduled council meeting. That public hearing, we can talk about the time, but I think we'd have it at 5:30. That's typically what we do. I don't save you guys a couple of bucks. I don't need to be here, because literally all you'll do is pass that ordinance establishing the public hearing. If I need to be here, I will. But after that ordinance, that's really when the public sort of phasing of the TIF process happens. We'll have to send out some letters to folks that are just outside our TIF district. Ultimately, we'll post a notice letting folks know about our public hearing for July 9th as well. And we'll also do some certified mail to folks that are in our TIF district. So just kind of want to make you guys aware of where we are from a housekeeping standpoint and where all that works.
Okay.
I'm with you every step of the way. You guys got my cell phone number, you got our office number. Just let us know and we'll be around. If we need to do some other like mini meetings or something like that, we can do those too.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
guys.
Do we have any other comment from any of the aldermen? Do we have any public comment? With that being said, we can move on to the Public Works, Mayor.
All right, that takes us to Public Works, chaired by Mr. Dan Pratt.
Okay, old business, discussion and update on the flooding issues and legal action. Is there any update on,
I don't know that there's any update. I had a brief conversation with Harold Sheffer today, and I believe that there's going to be a conversation between he and Attorney Blake in the near future about how to proceed. So that's
Okay.
really all I have.
new business? I don't have any new business. Do we have any comment from the council? Any public comment? I guess we can come out of that.
All right, that takes us to Public Safety, chaired by Mr. Russell Brown. Russell?
Yeah, on an old business, don't have anything. New business, consideration of declaring items as surplus. 1997 Chevrolet Gate 3500 trucks and bicycles.
I'd make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
I have a question about the bicycles. I think last year we gave them away to the middle school bike club.
I don't think they have that bike club anymore.
Really?
They don't?
That's a shame.
I don't.
One of the patrolmen
One of our young patrolmen, no.
Officer Harper had been working and
Correct.
sort of running that, and I don't believe that he has participated in that this year.
Well,
If we declare them surplus, I'd like to take the bicycles one of these Saturdays up to the Dom building and put them for sale. We sold them before like that for $10 a piece. Chief is, somebody's going over and look through the ones that's got tags and see if they've got to hold them or not.
For
We got-
evidence.
Yeah, a lot of them are probably in the system. Nobody's come to claim them or they'd be gone by now, so we could move them through. It's just at what pace that the evidence tech can get over there to look at all of them and see if we can get them moved through.
So maybe a week from this Saturday, we could, take them up, put them on my trailer, and I'll try to get a community service worker to help. We'll take them up and set them on the lot.
That's fine with me as long as we get them pulled out of the evidence file in advance of that, and I don't know who is our evidence custodian at this time, Chief?
Officer Wonderlick
Officer
and
Wonderlick, okay.
Officer Harper.
Well, if you could communicate with them to, within the next 2 weeks, see if they can get those pulled out, that'd be great.
Yeah, we got quite a few over there that don't have anything on them, but, we got some of them, and Darren and them has restacked some of them, so we got them in one place and the other in the other, so they can look stuff. A lot of them are found bikes,
And
Kids will steal them one side of town and ride them the other, steal another and ride it back.
They still end up in our system when they come to our.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, what's up with the two new Chevy trucks that we're trying to get rid of here?
Well, it's 2 old Chevy trucks.
Yeah, right.
That money that we get for those, will go into the seizure fund to help with other vehicles.
Okay.
I thought,
Are those, street department?
I think these are street department.
What is?
These, aren't these street department trucks? They're not?
No.
Wishful thinking.
Well, what
okay?
3,500 is, the police department?
Yeah.
Both of them, right? One of them had police on it, the other one had fire on it, but they both belong to the police department
I never
title
knew they had them.
Where are they?
out in the parking lot.
Really?
One of them a blue one.
Two,
I
both
never
of them are.
even remember looking, seeing them.
Yeah, it's those little ones, the four-door ones that sit around, they're diesels.
Okay, before I forget it, we need to put, don't we need to put some trucks on there for next meeting?
Yeah, we do.
Huh?
Yes, we do. We'll have to get the years on them and what all we need to get on it.
If you can get that to Leslie or Sandra, I'd appreciate it.
All right.
No, we didn't.
No, we voted on that.
No, we got a motion and a second, but we haven't voted on it because Gloria.
I have a question.
had questions.
Okay.
Spend time on it. I don't know where he's-
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I appreciate
Public
it.
comments?
Some of it did.
Any comments at all? Not, we come out of public safety.
All right, that takes us to the Personnel Committee, chaired by Ms. Barb Hughes.
As far as I know, there's no old business, no new business. Any public comment on, personnel?
No.
Hearing none, we should be able to come out of that one.
All right, that takes us to the mayor's report, but I'm gonna declare a 5-minute recess at this time, and then when we come back, we'll need a executive session.
She's doing okay. She still wanted to stay by herself, but again, stay by selfishness. We're putting a security system in, because first, she went with ADT. I have never, but I'm out of town, so.
I have a. But I'm telling you, I'm already
You know, that long, it's still called ADT, and then I have protection, and I have I just switch, they come on.
If you did that, you're gonna, what, try to put it on one you'd have to do that one.
That's what you said, yeah.
No, and I need all that stuff.
The city owns Bay View.
We'll have our copies too. No, I didn't get
Keith just handed a
it. Put in
cigarette.
your report.
Oh, well.
Are you sure?
Eric, since this lot is in the historic district, is what, something has to be, just conveying it over is what has to well, that's the accessory. I wouldn't think so.
Mayor, is the